So the title of the project is called The Queen, the Chairman and I, and it's actually part of the project that came before the work was finished. If you kind of know the history of Hong Kong, you realize that Hong Kong was essentially created by Queen Victoria when the British took Hong Kong as a colony. And the next stage of Hong Kong becoming the Hong Kong it is today was because of the Communist Party and Chairman Mao being kind of the man behind the movement. So really, The Queen, the Chairman and I is really about my story and how the historical figures like the Queen and the Chairman and what they did in the past 100 years affected where I ended up. I recently moved back to Hong Kong. I came to live in England when I was 13 and spent the next 22 years. Based in Britain, but kind of moving around the world. But because I went back to Hong Kong with my family to do this project, we fell in love with the city again, and we decided to move back there 8 months ago. If you look back at the work that I've been producing the last few years, it's kind of really pointing towards this project. I did a trilogy of projects which is based on my own experience. One was based on my own childhood, one was based on my children's childhood, and one based on my ancestors. So I kind of started gathering a lot of information about my own upbringing and a lot of questions, and really came to the point that I wanted to wrap up the family period. And also another reason why I made the project, being in Hong Kong, I never felt very Chinese. It was always about being Hong Kongese. So we kind of really stuck between the culture of kind of colonial Britain and China. And the last 10, 15 years, I've just wanted to find out how Chinese I am, and that's kind of where the project started. But in doing the project, I answered all my own questions. So I thought the most appropriate way to put the project together was to produce a storybook. So when my daughters are older, they can read about it, find out their own heritage. So this picture behind me is one of the very few pictures in the book that actually doesn't come with the captions. A lot of the images I made is based on a story, but this particular image wasn't. It was taken in a place called Tong's Bay, and that's where my surname came from. And I'm the first Tong in 4 generations to return to the village. When I went back there, I didn't know what to expect. When I got there, it was just a very regular kind of modern day Chinese village. But after a few hours spending in the village, it was this emotional tide that was pulling me in, and I kind of had a very strange day that day, kind of my affiliation with the place. And when I was waiting for the lights to be right to take another picture, I was just kind of had my camera set up when I was waiting. And I looked up for this scene, and I kind of realized it's very beautiful, and it was a very emotional day for me. And I kind of realized this particular scene could have been taken anywhere, even though it was from Tong's Bay. It could have been taken in England, it could have been taken in Hong Kong. And I kind of just realized the whole, quoting John Lennon, above us is only sky. We're really just kind of the same people in different parts of the world. And that's why I made the image. And I found it because the book consists of, I think it's 118 photographs and a lot of stories, and it was never going to be, the wall was never going to be enough to have all the stories in it. So I thought the best way is to actually set up a Chinese tea house. It's the Chinese equivalent of the pub where people sit down and share stories. And the idea they would finish the exhibitions and they get a taste of the family history and the story, and they would go and sit down at the tea house. They would take the time, they read the book. And what I always find with the book is after chapter 2, they'd stop reading and they're talking about their own grandfathers, and that's really the point of the project. It's really about visitors, kind of inspiring people to find out more about their own family history. So the book actually ends with the moment I met my wife, just before I started university. So the next page of the book would have been me starting university. I wanted to finish it there because I realized the whole making of the book, it was always kind of my choice of putting what story in. It was very much my version of the last 100 years. And I thought it's only fair that the next 100 years or the next 50 years would be done by my daughter. So the book ends with "to be continued," and it's up to my daughter to find out what happened next, and she can choose which interesting story to go into the next chapter. And I wanted to finish it there, so my daughter can take over.
very honoured to be here tonight. I'm very honoured indeed to be introducing you to this exhibition of Kurt Tong's photographs. I've had the privilege of walking around and listening to hearing him talk about those photographs. But the photographs speak for themselves, and I think you're going to have a very special time when you're going to look at them. So before I do anything else, before I say anything else, I want to convey a few thank yous. First of all, straightforwardly, a thank you to Kurt Tong himself, who's come all the way from Hong Kong, who has provided us with, I think you'll agree, a very special exhibition. I also want to thank Maura Lindsay, who's the curator of the exhibition, who made selections from the very many photographs that Kurt Tong has taken in connection with the theme of the exhibition. And she's done, I think, a wonderful job. And I'm impressed and proud that it is in our Victoria Gallery and Museum that that's being shown. And I also want to thank Matthew Clough. He is an absolutely powerful supporter of all things cultural and indeed scientific that are represented in this wonderful building. These photographs capture the real. They're profound insights into memory, into the nature of storytelling, into family legends, and into the web of connections that we make of our lives. Right? Sometimes what you need to be reminded of is that you don't know everything about the things you're looking at. So it may be a photograph of a hummingbird captured in the act of taking nectar out of a flower, or it may be a view of a waterfall that has turned into ice in Iceland, or it could be the inside of a high-security prison. Things that you never get to see, that suddenly you're made to see and you learn from the seeing. And these are the kind of photographs that I meant when, it seems to me when I looked at them, they made me remember that I actually have got eyes. That these are actually seeing the world and interpreting the world. And I looked at the colour, the balance, the shade, and all the kind of wonderful aesthetic qualities in those photos.
Fantastic. This is the first time I've been here and I'm so surprised. I'm in awe actually.
It's a beautiful building, it really is lovely, and the exhibits are amazing. I'm going to come again and have a proper look around.
This was wonderful. The photographs are really well taken. It's an amazing exhibition.
It provoked some thoughts for me about how Chinese am I, and because I work in a Chinese organisation, the question is even more relevant.
Yeah, I think I'm quite interested in that anyhow, because like my heritage is from Ireland, so it's always like, it's quite interesting, like your family is part of who you are, so it's amazing to see somebody else's view of their family and their heritage, and yeah, it was really interesting.
The images are absolutely amazing, beautiful, especially the one in the mist, the bridge in the mist, that's super. And Kurt just told me it took him 8 months to get that shot. It was well worth it.
Some of the cityscapes, very surreal, like the painted, you wouldn't think it's photography.
I think a hidden treasure in Liverpool, if I'm honest. I think it's gorgeous.